First, Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. told the United States Agency for International Development, or USAID, to correct an announcement that described Sabah as part of Malaysia. Sabah is not in Malaysia. If you want to have anything to do with the Philippines, he said. Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. said after USAID tweeted it had donated 500 hygiene kits for Region 9 or Southern Mindanao for use by returning Filipino repatriates from Sabah, Malaysia, who arrived in Zamboanga City and Bongao, Tawi-Tawi. In his official Twitter account, Locsin warned that you better edit that announcement if you know what's good for you. Now, Foreign Minister Datuk Seri Hishamuddin Tun Hussein has rebuked Philippine Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. over his tweet that Sabah is not in Malaysia. Hishamuddin described Teodoro's statement, Mr. Teodoro Locsin's statement, as irresponsible, and it could be detrimental to the bilateral ties between both countries. As such, Mr. Hishamuddin, via his Twitter account, instructed Wisma Putra to summon the Philippine ambassador, Charles C. Jose, on Monday to explain on the aforementioned issue. Sabah is and will always be part of Malaysia, Mr. Hishamuddin tweeted. His tweet had garnered over 2,000 retweets and almost 4,000 likes so far. On July 16, 2011, the Supreme Court ruled that the Philippine claim over Sabah is retained and may be pursued in the future. Close to 1 million Filipinos reside in Sabah, with an area of 73,631 kilometers east of Borneo, and they comprise one-third of the total population. Many of them work in construction, fisheries, or labor-intensive industries. According to to certain historical accounts, in 1658, the Sultan of Brunei gave Sabah to the Sultan of Sulu, either as a dowry or because troops from Sulu had helped him quell a rebellion. More than 350 years later, the Sultan's heirs have come to remind Malaysians that they still consider Sabah to be part of Sulu and, by extension, part of the Philippines. In 1878, the Sultanate of Sulu signed a contract known as a pajak that allowed the British North Borneo Company to occupy Sabah in perpetuity as long as it regularly paid the Sultanate a sum of money. The British colonial government succeeded the company, however, and in 1946, Sabah became a crown colony. In 1963, Malaya, Sabah, Sarawak, and Singapore formed the Federation of Malaysia. While the British and Malaysia interpreted pajak to mean sale, the Sulu Sultanate has always maintained it means lease. Even today, Malaysia pays about 5,000 ringgit or $1,680 a year to the Sulu Sultanate. Sabah has abundant natural resources and its economy is strongly export-oriented. Its primary exports include oil, gas, timber, and palm oil, and the other major industries are agriculture and ecotourism. And as we speak, we're trying to get in touch with the Philippine ambassador to Malaysia, the Honorable Charles C. Jose. Meanwhile, Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. said he would summon the Malaysian ambassador to the Philippines following a Twitter spat with Foreign Minister Hishamuddin Hussein over Sabah. In a series of tweets, the Filipino top diplomat stressed that Manila would never abandon its claim over the territory. No country can tell another what it can and cannot say about what the latter regards as rightfully its own. I don't insist China say only what we want to hear about the arbitral award. It's free to say what it wants while we say and do what needs doing. That holds for Sabah, he said. Now, the Twitter spat was sparked by a July 27 tweet posted at the U.S. Embassy in Manila page, which tagged Sabah as part of Malaysia. Mr. Locsin berated the embassy and, quote, retweeted the content saying Sabah is not in Malaysia if you want to have anything to do with the Philippines. On Wednesday night, Mr. Hussein responded by calling Locsin's remarks as irresponsible while underscoring that Sabah and will always be part of Malaysia and that Philippine Ambassador to Kuala Lumpur, Charles Jose, will be summoned over the issue. In a prior tweet, Mr. Locsin also said Manila continues to assert its claims on Sabah as it does with its rights in the West Philippine Sea. He said there have been repeated attempts to sell that claim, but no Philippine president has succumbed. With the Philippines' firm position on Sabah, the top diplomat noted that Manila's envoy being summoned was bound to happen. Meanwhile, the government of Maldives are starting to give allowances to its frontline workers. Joining us live from the beautiful islands of Maldives is the beautiful Steffi Dewan. Hello, Steffi.
Thank you so much, Alma. Yes, the government on Wednesday began to disburse the risk allowance set for the frontline workers of Maldives COVID-19 response. The Ministry of Finance announced that total 2.9 million MBR was paid out for 222 individuals so far. This amount covers the allowance for frontline workers from March 7 when the first case of COVID-19 was detected in Maldives until the end of June. The ministry assured that the pending allowance for more frontline workers will be disbursed as soon as their data verification and approval processes are completed. Finance Minister Ahmed Amir first announced President Ibrahim Mohamed Solih's decision to grant an allowance for frontline workers on May 7th this year. According to the minister, frontline workers are divided into three categories based on specific risk levels. The first category is those subjected to the highest risk, such as individuals who come into direct contact with COVID-19 patients, including doctors, nurses, sample collectors, laboratory technicians, those who operate the vehicles in which positive and suspected individuals are transferred, and those who enter COVID-19 treatment facilities. Those in the first category will receive an allowance of 500 MBR for every working day. Medium risk frontliners falls into the second category, including those who have to work with high-risk individuals, although they do not come into contact with COVID-19 patients. Those in this category will receive a daily allowance of 250 MBR for every working day. Frontliners that do not fit into either of the aforementioned categories but work in the now defunct National Emergency Operations Center for more than 6 hours each day are to receive an allowance of 200 MBR each day. The total number of positive cases in Maldives has reached 3,506 with 929 active cases. Till date, the country recorded 2,547 recoveries and 15 deaths. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you, Steffi, for your reports there in the beautiful island of Maldives. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alma. Once again, this is Steffi Di Juan reporting live from Maldives, and we live in interesting times.
And the movement control order can be reinforced if cases begin to escalate. And former Prime Minister Datuk Seri Najib Razak, who has been convicted of 7 charges relating to the misappropriation of the 42 million ringgit in SRC international funds, has paid 1 million for bail. Joining us live from Malaysia is Gail Aldos. Hello, Gail.
Hello, Alma. That is the latest news here. The movement control order, or the conditional movement control order, will be reinforced if COVID-19 local transmission positive cases escalate. Health Director General Datuk Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah said the government has no choice but to enforce the MCO again, similarly to the early stages of the pandemic, to break the chain of COVID-19 infection in the community. He said yesterday, if the virus spreads in the community and is not contained, they will face problems and could go back to the MCO or CMCO. Within these 2 weeks, if there is a sudden increase of cases and emergence of new clusters, the government will do contact tracing. Dr. Nur Hisham said the recent rise of infections in the community was because people violated the standard operating procedures. During the enforcement of the MCO, the number of positive cases was high, but the SOP compliance by the people was also high. Now, the people's complacency in adhering to the SOP could be due to low daily positive cases. He added Malaysians must be reminded to adhere to the SOPs because violation will lead to the spread of the infection in the community, and the MCO may have to be reinforced. Dr. Nur Hisham said Malaysians should stay at home so that the health ministry could conduct field activities to contain the outbreak. He expressed disappointment to see the SOP breached by the gathering of Datuk Seri Najib Tun Razak supporters at the Kuala Lumpur court complex 2 days ago, and said the health ministry would monitor the emergence of positive cases among the supporters within these 2 weeks. Commenting on the possible occurrence of a third wave of the COVID-19 outbreak, Dr. Nur Hisham said his team would have to work harder. They have been working for 7 months to prevent the spread. If a third wave happens, they will have to work hard for another 4 months, and 25,000 health personnel will be recalled to work for 20 hours a day if cases escalate. Meanwhile, he also reminded the public to follow the Eid al-Adha SOP set by the government in celebrating the festivity this Friday. Now on to another news. Najib settles additional 1 million ringgit bail. Former Prime Minister Datuk Seri Najib Tun Razak, who has been convicted of 7 charges related to the misappropriation of 42 million ringgit in SRC international funds, has paid the 1 million ringgit bail ordered by the High Court yesterday. Najib, 67, arrived at the court at about 1 p.m. with his son, Nurashman, who is understood to be his bailer. After that, the Pekan Member of Parliament was seen leaving the High Court Criminal Registry and left the court premises at 1:30 p.m. While passing by the media members and photographers, Najib joked that the photographers had already shot many photos of him 2 days ago. On July 28, in following Najib's application for a stay of execution of the sentence and fine, pending appeal to the Court of Appeal, the court raised his bail amount by another 1 million ringgit to be paid yesterday. Najib was already on a 1 million ringgit bail. The court also ordered Najib to report to the nearest police station twice a month. He was sentenced to a total of 72 years in jail and fined 210 million ringgit after the court found him guilty on 7 charges of criminal breach of trust, money laundering, and abuse of position involving 42 million ringgit in SRC International Sinderhan Berhad funds. However, Najib will only serve 12 years in jail as High Court Judge Muhammad Nazlan Muhammad Ghazali ordered all the jail sentences to run concurrently. He was sentenced to 10 years on each of the 3 charges for criminal breach of trust and each of the 3 charges for money laundering, and 12 years jail, and fined 210 million ringgit in default, 5 years jail for abuse of position. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Gail, for your updates there in Malaysia. Thank you, EBC Kuala Lumpur Bureau.
Reporting live from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, this is Gail Aldos. We live in interesting times.
In a related news, a fugitive financier being hunted by Malaysian authorities over his role in the country's multi-billion-dollar 1MDB scandal is hiding in the Chinese territory of Macau, according to Malaysian police on Wednesday. Lau Tek Zhao, commonly known as Joe Lau, is accused of being the mastermind behind the theft of billions looted from Sovereign Health Fund One Malaysia Development Berhad. The money was used to buy everything from a yacht to art in a fraud case that allegedly also involved former Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak. Malaysian Police Chief Abdul Hamid Badour said Low was in the semi-autonomous Chinese city of Macau, but speculation about his whereabouts has previously placed him in various countries, from the United Arab Emirates to mainland China. Asked why he had chosen to reveal Lau's location now, the police chief said allegations had been made that officers were purposely slowing down on the effort to bring him to justice. Charged in both Malaysia and the United States over the 1MDB scandal, Low has been accused by Najib's lawyers of being the mastermind behind the scam and tricking the former premier. Okay, more updates from Vietnam. Here's Charlene Navaja joining us live. Hello, Charlene.
Hi, Alma. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Charlene.
So it's yesterday once more in Vietnam. So where there is 9 new locally transmitted cases of COVID-19 have been detected, and 8 in Da Nang and 1 in Hanoi. So the latest information was released early this morning by the National Steering Committee for COVID-19 Prevention and Control. Included in the latest batch of new patients is a 76-year-old man who lives in Hoang Wat Tham Street, Tai Ho, Hanoi. Before testing positive, he had spent 3 weeks in Da Nang, So this is the Vietnam's coronavirus epicenter at this time. So he went there for a health checkup at the Da Nang Hospital, complaining of a fast heartbeat. And on July 25th, he came back to Hanoi, and 4 days later, he had his sample taken by the National Institute of Hygiene and Epidemiology for a COVID-19 test. So the result came in positive. So the alley number 466 on Hoang Wat Tham Street, where he lives in Hanoi, has been locked down since Wednesday night and sprayed with disinfectant. So among the 8 other new cases in Da Nang, one is a 36-year-old woman who works as a nurse at Da Nang Hospital. So 3 are patients being treated at the hospital. So 2 women aged 56 and 32, and a 52-year-old man. And 1 is a 65-year-old woman who is a relative of a patient being treated at the hospital. So the other people who have tested positive in Da Nang are a 57-year-old woman who lives in Hai Phong Road, Hai Chow District, and a 70-year-old man who lives on Hong Vong Road, Hai Chow District, and a 30-year-old woman who lives in Hoa Vang District. So meanwhile, the chairman of Hanoi People's Committee, Nguyen Duc Chung, has ordered the ban on all crowds gathering, festivals, and the closure of bars and nightclubs. So that all took effect midnight of Wednesday. And in a related news, Alma, so a U.S. man, 57 years old, was diagnosed in Ho Chi Minh City on Tuesday after traveling from Da Nang, according to the National Steering Committee for COVID-19 Prevention and Control. So he lives in Hoa Cang Bac, Lien Chiang, Da Nang. So he developed a fever. He had cough and found it difficult to breathe on June 26. So he was admitted to Huan Mi Da Nang Hospital. And from July 6 to 20, he was transferred to Da Nang Hospital and was treated there. So he was taken to Choi Hospital in Ho Chi Minh City on July 20 before being admitted to City International Hospital in the same city on July 21st. So the patient tested positive for COVID-19 on Tuesday. So with a sample having been sent to the Ho Chi Minh City Hospital for tropical diseases for testing 1 day earlier. And a Vietnamese woman who took care of him in the whole process also had her test come back positive on Tuesday. So the other 2 patients were detected in Hanoi and the Central Highlands province of Dak Lak. So both had come back from their trips to Da Nang. So Vietnam had announced 8 community-based coronavirus cases on Wednesday morning, all linked to 4 hospitals in the coastal city, and has recorded 34 community-based cases, all traced back to Da Nang since Saturday last week. So after having gone 99 days without a single local transmission, according to Toi Chin News count. So 26 of the patients are in Da Nang, 3 in Quang Nam, 1 in Quang Ngai province, 1 in Hanoi, and 2 in Ho Chi Minh City, and 1 in Dak Lak. So authorities are conducting aggressive contact tracing to all the stall of the virus. So as of 6 a.m. today, Alma, the total number of COVID-19 cases here in Vietnam rose up to 459, and 369 already recovered. 18 are still experiencing the relapse, but 0 deaths. So back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Charlene, for your updates there. Thank you, EBC Vietnam Bureau. Thank you.
Bringing you live updates in Hanoi, Vietnam. This is Charlene Navaja. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Charlene. ASEAN in Focus. We'll be right back. Okay, let's head on to Cambodia, where an aid to humanity was launched in Phnom Penh. Joining us live is Princess Kalamanan. Hello, Princess.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon.
Good
Here
afternoon.
are updates from Phnom Penh, Cambodia. Members of the Iglesia ni Cristo here in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, show their care to the community by holding aid to humanity amid the pandemic. The activity was led by the minister assigned in Phnom Penh together with some church members. They visited the Ministry of Cult and Religion's municipal department to donate goodie bags with no perishable items for staff members who expressed their thanks to the church administration.
Needful to the people even, and for the poor or for the kids or anything that we found it as the kindness. Please have a report for us. Yeah. As we know, the Christian humanity or society has offering much kindness in helpful as gift, present or any ceremony. Yeah. So for me, we have less report. So please have continue to have our society and humanity.
What we will do.
Yeah, and one more thing, and please have protecting us a smooth corporate. If you need like a renewing license, please do it. APT one, it's nearly. But we need to delay the document. See?
Okay. Thank you so much.
So, according to it about the government law. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And we very much appreciate it. Thank you.
This kind of event introduces the socio-civic program of Iglesia ni Cristo, which is being done worldwide. The church administration continues to help and foster this activity to show love and care even to different nationalities. The Cambodian missionary Solirat also expressed his thanks for inviting him to listen to the words of God written in the Bible whenever there is an evangelical mission. It is such a delight to see people helping one another, especially in this time of pandemic. Through the leadership of the executive minister, with the supervision of ministers and active participation of church officers, they continue to do good to those who are in need. Back to you, Alma.
All right, thank you very much, Princess, for your good news over there in Cambodia. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you, Princess.
Thank you so much to Alma. Again, this is Princess G. Kalamanan, live reporting from Phnom Penh, Cambodia. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, here in the Philippines, the city government of Manila launched its third coronavirus disease or 2019 walk-in testing center at the Justice Jose Abad Santos General Hospital, Minondo. Let's listen in.
Bawat area sa Maynila ay mayroong mass testing area na accessible, and convenient, and it's free.
Manila Mayor Francisco Isko Moreno Dumagoso said the serology testing machine located just outside the hospital can eventually process about 400 to 500 tests per day, although for now they will start processing 300 tests. Currently, the city already has a drive-through mobile and walk-in COVID-19 testing centers. He said for now they have 2 drive-through centers which are running for 2 weeks now, and they also have saturation drive-through, the mobile testing which goes down to the barangays with high COVID-19 cases based on data. Mayor Dumagoso said the city is buying another serology testing machine to be deployed at the hospital ng Tondo. He also said he plans to saturate every area of Manila for the mass COVID-19 testing to effectively identify and trace those who are positive with the disease so that they will be isolated at once, taken care of, and ultimately avoid the further spread of the virus. So far, Mayor Dumagoso said that more than 25% of those who underwent COVID-19 testing were found positive, and the mobile COVID-19 serology machines are being deployed to different barangays every day. The mayor said for this week they are placed in areas with the highest number of confirmed cases of COVID-19. He also said in a barangay where 100 people underwent the COVID-19 testing recently, 39 were found to be positive, which is 39% of the number tested in that area. Aside from the serology testing machine, the city still uses rapid test kits. The city also has a laboratory for swab tests. They've already conducted about 18,400 PCR tests since they started in March, which are services given for free. Mayor Domagoso said the COVID-19 test being done by the City of Manila may also be availed for free by non-residents. And a rare rescue flight from Africa and Vietnam brought home 140 workers infected with COVID-19. And authorities have approved also hotels as isolation zones for foreign experts who wish to work in the city. Joining us live from Vietnam is Chriselle Lacuna. Hello, Chriselle.
Well, Alma, good afternoon to you and to everyone who is watching. Let's hear some more updates from Vietnam. Vietnam brings 140 virus hitters home on a rare rescue flight from Africa. A specially converted Vietnam Airlines passenger plane equipped with ventilators and state doctors returned from Equatorial Guinea to Hanoi on Wednesday, carrying 140 Vietnamese workers infected with COVID-19. And I quote, "We are all prepared," end quote. Pham Ngoc Tan, director of the National Hospital of Tropical Diseases campus just outside Hanoi, told Vietnam News Agency. 100 ventilators, medicine, and other equipment for testing and treatment, as well as some 500 rooms have been set aside for the passengers. Equatorial Guinea has registered more than 3,000 cases of COVID-19 and 50 deaths. Its population of 1.2 million, make it one of the African countries considered by the World Health Organization as severely affected by the pandemic. Vietnam was bracing for a wave of locally transmitted COVID-19 infections on Wednesday after new cases were discovered in Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, and Central Highlands, and all linked to a recent outbreak in Da Nang. Of the 220 people on the flight from Equatorial Guinea, 140 were infected with the virus, state media said. At least a dozen were critically ill, said Tak, in what he described as an unprecedented large intake of patients of his hospital. State media said the rescue effort was organized after the stranded workers who had been working on a hydropower project sent a letter to the Vietnam embassy in Angola, 1,200 kilometers away, asking for help. In a statement, Vietnam Airlines said it was only the second time one of its planes had flown to Africa. The first was from June. It repatriated 309 Vietnamese workers from Angola. Another update, Alma, 8 Saigon hotels to lodge foreign experts in quarantine. Ho Chi Minh City authorities have approved the list of 8 3 to 5-star hotels as paid isolation zones for foreign experts entering the city to work. These hotels, or nearly 1,500 rooms, will be solely used to quarantine foreign experts and high-skilled workers granted permission to enter the city to work amid the COVID-19 pandemic, with all having to pay related expenses. Hotels used for isolation will not serve any other purpose, with security tasked to prevent unauthorized entry. Ho Chi Minh City's Vietnam's southern metropolis is seeking government approval to allow 437 foreign experts and high-skilled workers to return to the city to resume work. Earlier, 3,000 foreigners and their spouses had been granted special entry for employment purposes. Vietnam closed its borders and suspended all international flights on March 25 and has stopped issuing visas for foreign nationals since March 18, except for special cases. Currently, there are over 93,000 foreigners that are licensed to work in Vietnam. So far, that is the update from Vietnam, Alma.
All right, thank you very much, Chriselle. Thank you, EBC Vietnam Bureau.
Thank you so much, Alma, reporting live from Ho Chi Minh City. This is Chriselle Yacuna. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Chriselle. ASEAN in Focus will be right back.
Gusto ko pong ipaabot kasama ng aking pamilya at ng kababayan na ikatlong distrito ng Bohol ang isang taimtim na pagbati kay Ka Eduardo Manalo at sa lahat ng mga miyembro ng Iglesia ni Cristo na maligayang pagdiriwang sa 106 na anibersaryo. Ang aking panalangin na manatiling matatag ang Iglesia at ipagpatuloy ang misyon na ibinigay ng Panginoon at naway masama ako sa inyong mga panalangin at ang lahat ng mga naglilingkod para sa bayan.
Magandang araw po. Isa pong pagbati mula sa BHW Party List. Patunay po na sa ika-106 na taong anibersaryo ng Iglesia ni Cristo, ang komunidad pong ito ay isa ng institusyon sa ating lipunan. Isang mahalaga, isang importante, at isang karapat-dapat na institusyon. Iglesia ni Cristo stands as a shining beacon of faith, of hope, and of inspiration to our countrymen. And that is why I wish that you may be able to propagate the good news for more years to come. From BHW Party List, a very, very happy 106th anniversary Iglesia ni Cristo. Mabuhay po kayo!
Ein sonniger Tag heute hier in Berlin vor dem Bundestag. Ich bin Irene Juliet Arzadon und möchte diese Gelegenheit nutzen, um ein paar Worte mit euch zu teilen. An alle Menschen da draußen. In dieser Zeit lasst uns nicht vergessen, den Menschen zu danken, die ihr Leben für uns opfern. Sei es die Menschen, die im Krankenhaus arbeiten, in den Altenheimen sowie in den Arztpraxen, aber auch an die Menschen, die im Lebensmittelhandel sich befinden. Die Kassierer. Manchmal reicht es aus, um ihnen ein freundliches Lächeln zu geben. Denn die Menschen, die heute am Arbeiten sind, weil sie nicht so wie einige von uns zu Hause bleiben können, die sollten wir wertschätzen. Ihnen sollten wir unseren Dank ausrichten. Darum lasst uns noch mehr zusammenhalten, sie wertschätzen.
Welcome back. Singapore Airlines reported the first quarter net loss of more than $800 million. The latest carrier to take a massive hit as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. Passenger traffic was reduced to almost zero in the 3 months to June, according to SIA, leading to the Asian carrier's biggest ever quarterly net loss of 1.12 billion Singaporean dollars. The numbers extended the flag carrier's financial bloodletting after losing 732 million Singapore dollars in the 2019 fourth quarter ended March 31, leading to its first ever annual loss. Singapore Airlines said demand for air travel evaporated as travel restrictions and border controls were imposed around the world to contain the spread of the virus. Earnings from cargo flights were not enough to offset the massive decline in passenger numbers, and group revenue plunged 79.3% year-on-year. Now, Sukor Yusof, an analyst with aviation consultancy Endow Analytics, described Singapore Airlines' first quarter earnings as grotesque, reflecting the severity of coronavirus on the global industry. The International Air Transport Association, or IATA, meanwhile, estimates that airlines operating in the Asia-Pacific stand to lose a combined $27.8 billion this year. On Tuesday, IATA said global air traffic is unlikely to return to pre-coronavirus levels until at least 2024, a year later than previously projected. Among the reasons for this more pessimistic outlook, it said, is the slow virus containment in the United States and other developed economies. In other news, a grandson of Singapore's founding leader Lee Kuan Yew and nephew of the current prime minister was convicted of contempt of court over a Facebook post criticizing the judiciary during a bitter family feud. Lee Sheng-mu, an academic at the Harvard University, was also fined 15,000 Singapore dollars by the High Court over the 2017 post in which he described the Singapore government as very litigious and has a pliant court system. He will have to serve a week's jail if he does not pay, according to Justice Kanan Ramesh in the judgment, although Lee is currently living in the United States. Lee is the eldest son of business executive Lee Sheng-yang, who has been at loggerheads with his brother Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong over their father's legacy. He made the Facebook post as the family feud raged publicly following the death of the Lee patriarch in 2015. The spat pitted his father and aunt against his Prime Minister uncle, and the Attorney General's chambers had described his post as an egregious and baseless attack on the Singapore judiciary and lodged contempt proceedings against him. Indonesia has detained a Vietnamese boat carrying 2 tons of fish that was operating illegally in its waters, according to officials, just a week after a similar high seas pursuit. The trawler with the 9 crew tossed fishing nets and other incriminating equipment overboard and then set a tire alight in the hopes that the smoke would throw off their pursuers, according to Indonesian maritime authorities. The vessel then slammed into an Indonesian Coast Guard ship and a passing commercial boat in its failed bid to escape. Coast Guard spokesman Wisnu Pramandita said they fired a water cannon at the boat to stop it as it tried to get away, adding that authorities seized 2 tons of fish being stored on board. The incident happened on Sunday near Indonesia's Natuna Islands at the edge of the South China Sea, but was only made public on Wednesday. Last week, Indonesia said it had detained 2 Vietnamese vessels in the same area following a dramatic high seas brawl with dozens of crew desperate to avoid arrest. Indonesia, the world's biggest archipelago nation, says illegal fishing costs its economy billions of dollars annually and has been trying to stop foreign vessels entering its territory. Jakarta claims the southernmost reaches of the South China Sea as its exclusive economic zone. In March, maritime authorities seized 5 Vietnamese fishing boats and nearly 70 crew in the area. In other news, the Philippine Embassy in Singapore has brought home 325 Filipinos on Monday, its 8th repatriation flight amidst the ongoing pandemic. The Scoot TR-1390 flight departed Singapore at 1:45 p.m. and arrived in Manila on the same day at 5 p.m. This brings the total number of repatriated Filipinos assisted by the embassy to 1,739 since repatriation flights were organized in April. The flight also carried 600 units of oxygen concentrators donated by Temasek Foundation to the Philippines as part of its continuing assistance for Philippines' COVID-19 response. And over 300 distressed overseas Filipino workers from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia arrived in the country on Wednesday. The Department of Labor and Employment said. In a statement, Labor Secretary Silvestro Belliot said the 354 OFWs were brought home on board a chartered Philippine Airlines flight PR-655, which landed in Manila at about 12:30 p.m. At the same time, Belliot instructed Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, or OWA, to provide all necessary assistance to the arriving OFWs. Based on the report of Labor Attaché Nasser Mustafa to Bello, the majority of the passengers are distressed OFWs from Philippine overseas offices Bahay Kalinga in Riyadh and from temporary shelters maintained by the Polos in the eastern region of Saudi Arabia. The repatriation of the OFWs is in line with the department's efforts to provide assistance to OFWs adversely affected by the pandemic. And the number of police officers infected with the coronavirus disease or COVID-19 has reached 2,084. As of 6 p.m. on Wednesday, the Philippine National Police Health Service reported 36 new confirmed COVID-19 cases among its ranks, while a total of 757 personnel have recovered from the disease. The death toll still stands at 10. It is also monitoring 807 probable cases and 2,493 suspected cases. Earlier, PNP spokesperson Brigadier General Bernard Banac said the majority of the cops who have contracted the disease are asymptomatic. And Banac said cops tested for COVID-19 will observe a 14-day quarantine and undergo another test. Once cleared, they have to rest for 7 to 10 more days before going back to duty. Last Monday, PNP Chief General Archie Gamboa said the PNP second COVID-19 testing laboratory in Camp Crame is expected to boost its testing capacity for police frontliners. The Chinese Foreign Ministry assured that Beijing will prioritize the Philippines once it succeeds with the vaccine development for coronavirus disease. The statement comes after President Duterte, in his Fifth Station of the Nation address, said he personally asked Chinese President Xi Jinping to allow Manila to be the first nation to receive its vaccine once it passed all clinical trials. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin also said that China appreciates the president's South China Sea remarks, which underscored the Philippines' position in pursuing diplomatic means to counter Beijing's vast claims in the region. Let's listen in.
Any country has the right to develop its foreign relations based on its own national interests. President Duterte's proposition is in line with its people's interests, the aspiration of the people in this region, and the trend of the times for peaceful development. I want to say that China's position on South China Sea issue is consistent and clear-cut. Facts have proven that proper settlement of this issue is conducive to China and the Philippines, as well as regional peace and stability. We appreciate President Duterte's remarks. We stand ready to work with the Philippine side to properly handle and settle our maritime disputes through friendly negotiations so as to uphold the South China Sea and the whole region's peace and stability. Since the pandemic broke out, China and the Philippines have worked together and lent mutual assistance to each other. The anti-epidemic cooperation has become a new highlight in our bilateral relations. The Philippines is a friendly neighbor to China. We will give prioritized consideration to Philippines and the friendly country's needs in terms of the vaccine. Next question.
Aside from China, Manila is also in talks with several international firms working on a candidate COVID-19 vaccine, such as U.S.-based Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and Moderna. On a video message for the launch of policy brief on the impact of COVID-19 in Southeast Asia, Secretary General Antonio Gutierrez said the health, economic, and political impact of the pandemic has been significant across Southeast Asia, hitting the most vulnerable the hardest. Let's listen in.
As in other parts of the world, the health, economic, and political impact of COVID-19 has been significant across Southeast Asia, hitting the most vulnerable the hardest. The pandemic has highlighted deep inequalities, shortfalls in governance, and the imperative for a sustainable development pathway. And it has revealed new challenges, including to peace and security. Containment measures have spared Southeast Asia the degree of suffering and upheaval seen elsewhere. Governments acted swiftly to battle the pandemic and avoid its worst effects, and regional cooperation has been robust across multiple sectors. Throughout the crisis, the United Nations has been supporting response and recovery efforts. We are providing medical supplies, supporting social protection programs, assisting returning migrants, and addressing the surge in violence against women and children. Looking ahead, 4 areas will be critical in the region's plans for recovery. First, tackling inequality in income, healthcare, and social protection, in short-term stimulus measures, as well as long-term policy changes. Second, bridging the digital divide to ensure that people and communities are not left behind in our ever more connected world. Third, greening the economy to create the jobs of the future and to decarbonize economies still too dependent on coal and other industries of the past. Fourth, upholding human rights, protecting civil space, and promoting transparency, which are all intrinsic to an effective response. Central to these efforts is the need to advance gender equality, address upsurge in gender-based violence, and target women in all aspects of economic recovery and stimulus plans. This will mitigate disproportionate impacts of the pandemic on women, and is also one of the surest avenues to sustainable, rapid, and inclusive recovery for all. The current situation is leading to recession and social tensions. Already, hate speech has increased and political processes have stalled, leaving several long-running conflicts to stagnate and fester. All governments in the sub-region have supported my appeal for a global ceasefire, and I count on all countries in Southeast Asia to translate that commitment into meaningful change on the ground. The region has much work to do, but has formidable capacities at its disposal. The United Nations is strongly committed to our partnership with the countries of Southeast Asia, and we will continue to support efforts to get the region on track to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and build a peaceful future for all.
Now, he concluded by saying the region has much work to do, but has formidable capacities at its disposal. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay safe, stay healthy. We live in interesting times.
Allow me to extend our sincerest gratitude to the administration of Ka Eduardo and the Iglesia ni Cristo for the timely offer of the use of the Philippine arena for our kababayans infected with COVID-19 and a safe and recuperating area also for the PUIs amongst our OFWs. Your generosity has clearly manifested your sincere and caring concern for our country and our people, and this is deeply appreciated. To everybody in Iglesia ni Cristo, happy anniversary.